Hi beautiful people, it's Danny here from Zinnias and Zen with yet another edition of my Mindful Musings, and today I wanted to talk a little bit more with you on ways we can increase our self-awareness, and also to be talking to you about aspects of balance and why balance is so important at this time. And so the first thing I wanted to talk about today was astrology, and this is the tool that we can all utilize to gain greater understanding of who we are, but not only of ourselves, but of the greater cycles of nature and life itself, when we think in terms of death and rebirth, the seasons, and so on. And so it is this understanding of astrology that we connect to an esoteric wisdom that has been around and been recognized to be of significance in the marking of time and assisting someone to navigate their way by following the stars. And it stems back as far as mankind itself, when we think that for over 60,000 years Indigenous Australians have been present on the earth, and they have their creation and dreamtime stories connecting to the stars. They use the stars for navigation and so on. And so we understand that many ancient cultures, such as that of the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greeks, the Mayans, all had this fascination of following the planets' movements throughout the skies. But it really was the Greek culture that connected to and developed this school of thought of astrology that we know today. And it's because, when we look at the planets, names given to the planets, it's the Greek gods of old. And when we think of the word zodiac and given to the signs of the zodiac, we understand that that is also connected to the Greek culture. And so we recognize that we have 12 signs, constellations within the sky that the planets move across, and in a 2D format, we look at what's known as the astrological wheel. And then it was probably 300 years later, after the naming of the astrological signs and recognizing the presence of astrological signs, that the houses were developed. But it wasn't until Western astrology sort of made a comeback and there was a more modern application and philosophies and teachings applied to it that we start to really feel into the astrology that we know today. But the more modern Western teachings have more of an evolutionary, intuitive feel about them. And it really started when they started to apply psychology to the understanding of the signs of the zodiac, such as the Jungian archetypes. So through the astrology, we have a tangible way. And I say tangible in the sense that we can see the stars. 7 of the planets are visible to the naked eye, so we can see them in the sky. And we can also feel and recognize the specific traits that have been, applied to each energetic frequency of the planets. We recognize them within ourselves through the traits of personality, the weaknesses, the strengths, etc. But it really depends on what we are conscious to. So again, it comes back to this aspect of awareness of whether we're awake or conscious or unawake. And it is tangible because when we are conscious of them, we recognize them within ourselves. And I can suggest, being a sun sign Virgo with a tendency of perfectionism, where some people can just do a video, yep, one take, it's done. I often find myself doing more than one take because I get to the end and go, oh, I meant to say that, or, oh, I went on too much waffle and off on this tangent, and so I correct it. So you do recognize those aspects identified through the astrology. But when we think of the astrology, you know, at the time of our birth, our natal birth charts are a representation of where planets were positioned in the sky at the time of our birth. And so each position of the planet is one piece of a jigsaw. They all come together to form a whole. And it's really not until we're embracing and having awareness and understanding of all these various aspects of ourselves, so all the pieces forming that whole, that we understand that that is a true representation of our authentic self and of our unique expression of source, creator, all that is, however you connect with that sense of our origins. And so the stars are seen as our origins by many people. We have this cosmic connection, and when we understand the law of one, we recognize that we have a connection to all life, as above so below, as within so without. Isn't just speaking of the energy and the movement of energy, it's speaking of the cycles of time within cycles, but it's also speaking of our connection to everything within this universe that is living. And so through the archetypal energies, the recognized traits, we get greater awareness of who we are. But when we start to follow the astrology and understand the orbital cycles of the planets, we are given even further awareness, and particularly when we start to recognize through the transits of the planets and the houses that various aspects of our own natal chart and the current transits are interacting with one another. We get this sort of navigation system to understand better through the houses what aspects of our life, the areas of our lives that certain energies might be showing up. There's a greater significance to the cycles. So when we think that astrology gives us that tangibility, the deepening into the cycles and understanding the cycles also gives us a tangible connection to source and the understanding of life and death. And we start to recognize that there's this ebb and flow, this dual nature of the energy. But every cycle is created or occurs as this way of maintaining balance or creating balance and harmony upon our planet. But when we think that, again, through that understanding of as above, so below, as within, so without, we ourselves have this energy moving within us, an ebb and flow, a contraction and expansion. And it really speaks of the dual nature that we recognize through aspects of what was deemed to be masculine or feminine, the doing and the being and so on. And we must understand that, you know, it's two halves coming together. It's two energies that are in unique contrast, but at the same time complement one another, coming together to form a whole. And that whole is the balance. But within ourselves, like through the distortion that was created around this dual nature through the suppression of the feminine with the patriarchy, we've lost our way. And this is really why we see such great divide and separation upon our planet at the time, because there is very much the extremes of the polarity, the extremes of the duality being recognized because of this separation and divide. And it is all really stemming from this distortion through our societal conditioning or programming, however you want to think of it as, to do with the patriarchy that has suppressed the feminine. So we lost our way in terms of recognizing and being in rhythm with the natural cycles, which was an ebb and flow between the doing and the being. So the doing being the assertiveness of the masculine, asserting their will, and the being simply being the receptive, nurturing nature, intuitive nature of the feminine. And so things like self-care fell away, the need to rest fell away, and we tend to be sort of constantly doing, and being has been forgotten about. So it's important now that we bring and we reset the balance. And it's through that balance, it's through that connecting back and having that deeper understanding and dancing in rhythm with the natural cycles that we will bring balance back to the earth. But it starts with ourselves. As they say, we have to love ourselves first to love others. We have to have balance within ourselves to create balance in our external worlds. But it all starts within. It all starts from our thoughts and what we are aware of. And so this is why astrology plays a wonderful tool of awareness, because the cycles through history repeat. However, because each time we meet the cycle and we evolve, we move through the entire astrological wheel or the entire cycle, we're constantly meeting these energies and evolving through our consciousness and what we are aware of. So every time, it's a bit like they talk about when we heal, it's like peeling back layers of an onion. It's because we keep coming back to the same point in the cycle, but we have a deepening of our understanding, and understanding it from a much deeper level that gives us with greater awareness of perhaps what needs to be released or what needs to be given attention. And so it's this understanding of this distortion of duality, and that we need to, it's sort of like they say, in order to break the rules, you need to understand the rules, learn the rules first. We need to reestablish the truth of what duality is, and it's the two energies coming together in harmony, in union, to create something better. And that's what we're trying to do here on the world. In the world is create a new earth. So we have to balance ourselves and balance the earth. And as we heal ourselves, we heal the earth. And it's this beautiful reciprocal energy that if we heal the earth, we heal ourselves, that we need to pay attention to. And so it is this honoring of the feminine that is required by us now in order to reinstate the balance, realign ourselves to the truth of how the duality serves us for the good. And it comes through the acceptance, the radical acceptance of all aspects of ourselves that we have separated away from when we think in terms of our shadow. And we need to reestablish the balance and accept one another's diversity in order to reunite the duality and the polarity to create the balance. So when we think of where we are in the zodiac signs at the moment, we're in the sign of Gemini, all to do with our minds. We've addressed last week that being aware of our thoughts increases our awareness, but we also identified that our thoughts create our reality. So we start here in our minds in Gemini, because it is that sense of self that we acknowledge through the sign of Gemini. But it does speak of the two hemispheres of our brain and the need for us to be recognizing the feminine through that other aspect of the brain. But also it asks us to find balance, because not everything can be rationalized through the logical, analytical aspect of our brains. We have to have the intuitive, nurturing, imaginative, receptive aspects and our intuition. And so we also are asked to ground what we know into our energy and our hearts. And so when we look to the tarot for an indication of an understanding of this archetype of Gemini, it's the Lovers. And the Lovers speaks of two coming together to create something new, to create something beautiful through intimacy and vulnerability and harmony. And so we get this greater understanding of this need for balance upon our planet when we look at Gemini. And this is something I'm going to touch a little bit more on in the days to come when I talk about the significance of now. I also want to suggest that you look at the moment at ways you can be honoring the feminine within yourself, whether it be through shadow work, womb healing, just doing things that will respect the earth, show you care about the earth, healing the earth, but just give some thoughts to simple ways you can be doing more of that at this time to restore your connection to nature, to honor the feminine within yourself and bring that honoring back to Mother Earth as well. So I'll be back again in the coming days to talk more about this significance of the cycles, deepening into the cycles. But that's really where I wanted to leave it today, just as that food for thought to get you thinking. But it really starts through these aspects of awareness and bringing balance back to self. So from my heart to yours, luminous blessings. Until next time, bye for now.